welcome to session number 3. So you've done a couple of these with me now. You've seen other mentees do this stuff. I typically like to let you start this sort of thing. So, what do you want to talk about? What should we start with?
Yeah, let's continue, I guess, where we left off. Some new things. I put some notes in the OneNote or the doc as well. I started learning Spanish. I was bored. I was like, need to do something to replace my doom scrolling, basically. So it also ties into the video you made. I found myself that, every time I install some kind of app and I end up spending my time scrolling through some app or playing a small game on my phone, whatever, and I'm really trying to consciously cut down on time spent on my phone because I feel like it's either not useful time spent, but like of course being entertained and not being bored can be considered useful. But I feel like even in that regards, it's just really low value entertainment, so to call it. So I'm like,
Yeah.
what can I do with this time? And it's like it's fine if it's on my phone, but I want to feel that I either get something out of it or like it is high quality entertainment, so to say. Maybe I find a really fun game and I would think that's high quality entertainment, it'd be fine. So I got some friends in Spain. I was like, I'm just gonna learn Spanish. So that's been my doom crawling replacement. That's been working quite well so far. One of the things, like I said, was Reddit. I was just endlessly scrolling on Reddit. But like last week, I opened Reddit and I found out that if I click like on an image, like I usually only just watch funny images, like cats, whatever videos, whatever is on there. And I noticed that like every time I clicked on that, it would open a new tab, and I was so annoyed by it because like it wouldn't open in line, and that really helped me just cut out Reddit complete because I was so annoyed. I'm like, okay, I'm never opening this site again. And I didn't even like go back to check this was like a one-time bug or something that prevented me from like inline viewing images and videos. And I don't even want to know if it's like a one-time thing because it's worked wonders for me not going back to Reddit on my mobile phone.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I think this is great. I think it's good to have sort of positive replacement behaviors. At least that's how I was describing it in the video that I'd made. I do think, just to set expectations, when you start something like this, of course you're super motivated. You're like, cool, I cut out doom scrolling. At some point, yeah, you'll probably hit the point where you're like, I'm bored, or Spanish is hard, or something, and it's okay. I think you've at least generated some mindfulness around this now, so I think that's
Yeah.
good. Out of curiosity, just from where you stand now, how far do you want to go with Spanish?
I mean, if I can, I want to be like, fluent in it. Uh, like I got quite a bit of an addictive personality, I'd say. Like I see this with games, with even eating. Like anything I do, I pick it up. I always go for the 100%. Like if I start like a new project or something, I was like, oh, like shoot for the stars and aim for the moon or whatever it's called. And it's the same with learning Spanish. I'm like, get fluent or don't go at all.
The reason I'm laughing is because I would consider fluency to be like a good 100% target, but really 100% would be like, every word in every language that you learn, which would be
Yeah, no, it's
ridiculous.
any percent speed run.
Yeah, any percent speed run to Spanish. So I think that's good. I think it's really good. I think it's good you have a goal. Also, knowing that you have friends, they could always help you out with it. And there are lots of apps you can use to learn nowadays. I know several people are learning Spanish, and they're the ones that actually put you in contact with a native speaker, I think, are the best. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much about this because it's not like I know Spanish or have learned a language fluently. Um,
You haven't?
so I think this is good. Well, other than English, I think this is good. Uh, I want to follow up with this. I want to follow up on this next time. So I'm just going to write something here. Follow up on this next time. Are you still doom scrolling at all? But yeah, kudos to you. I think this is great. Good use of your free time.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'm using Duolingo so I can like see your daily streak. I'm like 48 days now, so far it's going good. And like you said, it really helps that I got friends. So I'm like, I don't understand what am I doing wrong, or like I'll put out some silly message that like I don't know, me hablas, or I just put something stupid out to them and they love, and I'm like, okay, yes, and they like correct what I did wrong. So that really helps indeed to stay motivated as well.
yeah, that's great. That's definitely great. I think the last time I was trying to learn something like this was when I was learning French, and I found an app that let me type to people who were native French speakers and they could type in English to me. And you had a way of actually like editing their answer so they could see a diff of what they did wrong.
Oh,
And I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, making
that's
mistakes
fun.
is
Yeah.
definitely how you learn that stuff.
Yeah, so I actually put this in like 10 minutes before starting the session because I was like, oh yeah, I've been doing this, and I was like, oh yeah, you made a video on this, so maybe it's funny to put it in. But actually, yeah, that's it's fun. It's nice. It's been nice. So more towards like my career
Yeah.
focused thing that we talked about in previous sessions. I actually had a talk with my manager yesterday to do my expectation settings for this year.
Hmm.
So at the start of every year, we do expectation settings, which is, well, mostly like what work do we expect you to do? Like, do we expect you to focus on? But there's also, like I said, like 25% of this expectation settings is focused on, where do you want to go?
Yeah.
So it's not solely like the company expects this and wants you to do this. It's also like, what do you want to do for growth? Uh, so we first talked about the work. There's still too much work for us to handle, so we're gonna have to figure that out some way. That's the gist of the work load we have. Uh, there's also a new person that now decides what our priorities are. Uh, I got some opinions about some of those things, but they are not in my position to, change these directions. So I just accept that these are the tasks that I have to do, and I'll start working on them, which is fine. So then at the end of it, I brought it up to my manager, like, hey, in my year-end review, you brought up, like maybe you want to expand your horizon. Like in 5 years' time, I will probably be leaving the company to go into retirement, and someone needs to fill the spot. And back then, I said like, basically, I don't think I'm too interested in it because you do a lot of contract management and stuff like that. But as I discussed with you, I have been thinking about it, and like, what would I want out of such a position? So I came back to him and said, like, I've been thinking over what you said, and I want to discuss this. And he was really open to that, and he said, like, he thinks I'm a good suit for the position because I'm quite a social guy. I like interacting with people. I like helping people or tackling problems with people together. Uh, so he said, like, yeah, you do seem to be someone that would also like this position, and that he thinks I am capable of doing it, which to me is quite yeah, it feels nice. If like my current manager is someone I look up to quite a lot, if he says that he thinks I can do it, that's a huge compliment, I think. Uh, so I saw you put a question mark for the replacement training, and I'll get to that right now.
You don't need to. You don't need to respond to these things in real time. I just know that I
No, no,
don't. Yeah.
I know. I just happened to say see it, and I was going to bring it up second.
Okay.
So what I mean with that, like, so I brought it up, like in 5 years' time when you're leaving, I'm not like hunting for your spot, so to say, but it is something I would like to grow into. And he said you should be doing it because you want this function wherever you are. So what he meant with that is like not at the current company, like maybe in 3 years' time you will get invited for this position from another company, or an opening opens up with a different company for this position. You should also have the drive to go for that position then, and not just like as a replacement for me, because he said we don't really do like he's not going to coach me into replacing him. So to say, like the next 5 years will be him coaching me so that when he leaves, I can take over fluently. Like he made it very clear, like we're not doing that in this company because we just don't know if you're actually going to commit to it, or maybe the entire landscape within the company changes within the next 2 years, like if a new board comes in or whatever. So that's what I kind of meant with like replacement training, where he like one-on-one trains me to become his replacement.
Okay, wait.
So
So
there's none of
let me ask you a couple things about this. One, is your manager saying that for the entirety of the 5 years? So my understanding is 5 years from now your manager will retire, and right now you're not going to do this replacement training. But 6 months before your manager retires, the company landscape probably isn't going to be changing over the course of just 6 months, and you're probably not going to be able to, or you would know enough about whether you're going to change your mind. Could you get more training then if you felt like you didn't have it?
We didn't specifically talk that through, but I am sure, well, quite confident. I'm not sure, but I'm quite confident that if he would be in like 6 months from him leaving,
Hmm.
and I am still in a position where I want to take over, and he's still in a position where he trusts me, I can do it, then I am fairly certain that at that point he would do this, like handover training for like the last
Okay.
six
Yeah.
months, year, however long we decide a period to
Okay.
be.
And then you mentioned the whole you should be doing this because you want this at any company. What does that change for you hearing that?
Uh, I think I would also want to do that at another company. Yeah. So maybe if like, in 3 years time, I see some other company is like, searching for the position that I want to be in, which is basically, leading a small ICT team, but also being part of the production team itself. I if I would see such an opening, I would probably consider doing that. Yeah. So
So Originally, I think even in our first session, you'd said something like, I want to stay at one company pretty much my entire life. And I'm not
Yeah,
necessarily trying to steer you toward that. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is your manager had said, I think you should be aiming for this position as though it were at another company. And I think what your manager was getting at is like, then you need to grow your skills so that another company could just, pluck you out of the candidates and plop you into the job. If that's what they were saying, I think that's fine. I think you are already growing some of these skills, and we can talk about how you can grow more that you might need. And the timeline is so long, 5 years, that
yeah,
I
definitely.
think you'll have plenty of opportunities. So, do I at least have the right gauge on that? That he's pretty much focusing on the whole like, I'm not going to start training you now. That's the main
Yeah,
takeaway. Okay.
yeah, but that would be like him personal training because the other thing he mentioned, which is like a little bit farther on in the list, is that he was really open at like, if you want to do this, we can find whatever training you need to get you familiar with managing skills. But like that's
Oh,
not like him uh, slowly rolling me into his position.
yeah,
That's like, sending me on outside trainings where I learn managing skills, I think communication skills, whatever is possible. So this was just focused like on internal training with him.
yeah,
He was really open to be like, if you want to do this, we can look at what trainings you need or what trainings they are. Like, even internally, we have trainings for these kind of transitions. And he was really hyped. Hyped may be a big word, but he was really interested in, letting me know that there are these opportunities and trainings I can follow if I want to do this.
yeah. Okay, this is really good. I think I'm very happy to hear all of this because originally you were thinking, hey, I'm worried about the contract management part of the job. Then you talked to your manager and you talked to some other people and they said, look, that's not what the role used to be. That's just what your manager likes to do or can do or, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's what your manager's doing right now. And so that was a relief for me to hear this because I thought, okay, cool. Remy won't have to grow into a way he doesn't want to. And now your manager is saying, look, I can't personally train you, or at least that's not reasonable right now, but I'm willing to give you basically any resource you need to go do what you need
Yeah.
to do. So I think there are two parts of this. I think one is identifying what you need. And then the second is going and carving out the time for that. And this is where I wrote a star next to this. You are going to have to get better at taking these trainings every quarter and
Yeah.
like carving out the time. That's just a thing. You do this yearly planning. You're going to have to say, you know what, we're going to reserve 5 or 10% or something, some amount of time for me to go do this stuff. And I guess if you think about it in terms of like any given month has 20 work days. So in a quarter, you have like 60. So if you were to take 10%, you'd be taking 6 days. So I don't know, 5% sounds reasonable, right? Take like 3 days and go do a training. And so I want to focus on this for the future for sure. But I want to talk now about what you might need. We're talking about a 5-year plan to getting you to be comfortable taking your manager's job. Toward the end, you might have some dedicated training from that manager. Can you identify any gaps that you have right now where you wouldn't be comfortable if you were to take the job today?
Yeah, that would probably be like negotiations.
Yeah.
Like there will of course, there's no way I won't be doing any kind of contract management because for my team software, of course, I would need to do it. And I'm really bad at like, sitting across from someone and they're like, okay, it's gonna cost X amount of money, and I gotta be like, no, we only want to pay N amount of money. And like those kinds of negotiations, or even like, if you want to hire someone, doing those kinds of talks, there will be moments where you're like, okay, yeah, you're just not the right candidate, and you have to tell someone you're not gonna be it. I'm really bad at like delivering bad news to people. So those are certainly gaps I can identify for myself right now. I would need to train on.
Yeah.
And I think there's also a lot of not knowing what you don't know here. Like I have no idea what it means to be a manager of a small team. I've never done it. There's probably tons of things my manager does that I don't even realize or I don't see. So there's a lot of like unknown unknowns there.
Okay. Um, Here's what I think. The negotiation, the interviews, the giving bad news, there are ways you can probably accomplish some of this. But for finding the unknown unknowns, I think there are usually general management trainings, and those will uncover some of those gaps. There's no way to ever, I mean, this is the nature of the problem of having unknown unknowns. You can never know if you've uncovered all of them,
Yeah,
but then you eventually get the job, and that's where you find out what the remaining ones
you
were.
will run into them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, I want you to start prioritizing what kind of trainings you want to do. We talked about some of the C++ stuff last time, and I don't know how long that project will last. But so there's technical things, but then there's the management stuff. And I, at the very least, I see it as almost a necessity that over the next few years, you should be taking some number of days per quarter and doing some kind of training. You've clearly identified this as a need. It's something the overall team struggles with, and it's something you can benefit from. And I don't know what kind of courses there are. This is the kind of thing you need to come back and say, like, okay, look, there are these 10 courses, or maybe you figure it out yourself. But then you will almost certainly learn something there. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I want you to do that. The other thing is, can you sit in on interviews? Do you do this now? Do you see how this process goes?
No, I don't do this now.
Okay. Can you?
I've never asked, so I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't know if they would be okay with that or not.
Okay. Because um, at Google, at Amazon, I know they do interview shadowing where you can join somebody else. And so let's say you're a candidate applying for that company. Someone might say, "Hey, I'm Adam. I'm here to conduct your interview. And this is, George. They're just going to be watching and they're learning the process themselves." And usually that's totally fine from a candidate's point of view. They just think, okay, this person I can just ignore. They're not going to be talking or something. And I think that's pretty normal. So I think if you were to ask, could I sit in on interviews and see how they go? Or could I sit in on probably not the negotiation process, I would guess, but maybe you could just ask about it. Those are the kinds of things I would start to do so that these things that are gaps aren't as big when it comes to taking the job. Does that sound something like something you're comfortable doing?
I'm not sure if I would be right now at this point,
Yeah, yeah,
but maybe in the future, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Like if I am more serious about it and I have more of a solid sort of solidified idea of what it like entails, and I think I need to be further in the process before I would want to do this. But like once I am at that point, I would definitely be comfortable doing it.
Okay. I think that sounds totally reasonable. The thing I would still push for, and when I say now, I would say in the next, quarter or two, is the training stuff. I think
Yeah,
because even if you don't do management training, we might be far enough ahead of time where that's not important, but you have mentioned there are other trainings you want to do. So I would still urge you to do that. So prioritize technical versus management. Yeah. Okay, but yeah, this is good. Look, it's always good to have your manager in your corner, and your manager gave you some pretty encouraging words, like you're a good fit for
yeah.
this.
I think
Yeah,
he's definitely in my corner on this,
yeah, and
and
it's not even just, hey, I support your decision. It's like, I think you're good for this. I think you
yeah.
are a good fit. So I think it's nice that your manager said that.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
also my senior who's like previously in his position, like I've also been talking with him, and he's also like, yeah, I think he also thinks I'm a good fit for it. And like when he did it, like what put him off was that he just didn't like the people management side of it. He's like a really technical guy, and that's fine, obviously. That's what he told me. Like he like just said like I didn't like the people management skills, and he's like you probably are a better suit for that. So it's like probably if like in 5 years time my manager leaves, he will probably also not be someone to like step up to the plate himself to take over if there's a different person to fill the role, so to say.
yeah,
And but he will still be in the company, so he would probably be someone I could rely on for help as well because he's been in a position and has the knowledge and the experience doing it.
yeah.
So like there would be a safety net, so to say, for me if I could do this in 5 years. Some big assumptions being made there, of course.
Yeah, but I think this is something you can work toward. And I have a feeling that if you keep giving this signal to your manager saying, I'm interested in this, I'm working toward this, look, I'm taking these courses, I'm filling in these gaps that I have, I think your manager will know that if I do want to go a different route, I should tell Remy about it because otherwise I'll, break his expectations. The other thing is that I think it's good that you talk to your coworker about this. It's always good to know why people want or don't want something else. And in this case, it was purely subjective, right? They don't like people management. I don't think you'll have that problem from everything you said. I know you haven't, directly managed people, but all of the stuff that you do and what you work toward seems to point toward you liking that kind of development. So I don't see there being a fit problem there. And then, yeah, it's just a matter of kind of getting the experience doing it. So
Yeah,
good job talking to your manager about this. I think it's, yeah,
thanks.
I think it's looking up.
Yeah, and I also discussed with him, the like the kind of roles he fills in the position. So like the contract manager, like I told him again, like I don't get happy from doing lots of contract management. There's a mandatory amount that comes with the role, that's fine, but I don't want to, take on extra than necessary in that role. And he also told me like, there's ways you can shape that yourself. So he definitely like he made it very clear that the role is open to interpretation of the person filling the role. So I asked him like, you do a lot of management for some other departments as well. And he's like, yeah, like that shouldn't be my responsibility, but because he used to be like the general ICT manager as well before stepping down to this role. So he said like that's also just a bit of legacy work that I have from
Yeah.
my previous role that I've just decided to keep for myself. And that's also why it's like because he also asked, would you like to go like the next level even after this small team management to be like entire ICT management? Because he's like, then you probably can't be hands-on code anymore. And I just told him like, at this point, I do not see myself going that far, just because I would like lose the being part of the team myself.
I see. Yeah. And these are all stepping stones. So, like you just mentioned there, right now you might not feel that way, but in the future you might say, you know what, I like managing a small team, but I want my impact to be bigger. Okay, bigger team. And it might feel like a sensible decision at the time. I do find that as people stick with coding for, 5 plus, 10 plus years, that their relationship with it does end up changing. And I think a lot of it too is like you'll have solved the problems you want to solve. And then at some point you're just like, oh, now there's a lot of boilerplate doing it. I don't find it as exciting. And so who knows? Maybe it transitions. And some people don't feel that way. Some people just want to do that their entire career. So yeah, I'm excited for you. I think this is good. It's too bad this is playing out on a 5 year time scale. If only you could, fast forward all of that super fast and I could find out the conclusion to this story now. But this is
No spoilers, Adam. You'll just have to keep streaming for 5 years and do these mentoring sessions for 5 years. And you have 5 years of content out of me. Isn't that great?
yes. We could talk about cupcakes every month.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
All right.
trainings. I know I was kind of really mentioning the significance of them, but it sounds like you have actually talked about them. So yeah, why don't you tell me?
Yeah. Yeah, this is something I also brought up in the expectation settings. I'm like, we have talked about this before, about, how the team just lacks trainings. We're gonna like, we're moving basically our infrastructure to the cloud and Azure, DevOps, but no one in our teams has any experience with it. So I talked to my manager, and they've actually went a step further, and they made uh, Azure trainings mandatory for the entire team for this year. So there's like, what is it like? Azure Fundamentals, Azure Development, and Azure DevOps. I think like the training, the starting courses for those. We have to do these three this year. Like otherwise, we just get a negative year-end review, basically. And on top of that, we got this internal uh, what is it, human development program, so to speak, which I did like the first course of last year. And it's also become mandatory on this year's expectation settings that I do the follow-up training this year, which is more focused towards, taking on a leadership role, working on soft skills or other blind spots that I might have identified with myself or others have identified with me.
Mm-hmm.
So there is definitely going to be time in this year that I just have to spend on trainings. Like if I don't, my year end review would just be poorly, which isn't a good thing.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
did they said the trainings are mandatory, but they're not telling you what time you have to take it. They're not doing groups or anything.
No.
Okay, that's a little bit strange. There are no set times or groups because part of what I think can be good about trainings is there's obviously the training part, but then there's the team bonding, morale part, where if 5 of you go to the same training, you get lunch together. Maybe you're not eating with these people all the time, or you are talking about the course together, or something like that, or I don't know. And it doesn't sound like that's happening. So if there are no set times, what is your plan to take these 3 trainings?
Uh, Good question. I don't know. But the first thing that popped into my head was like probably at the end of the year because I'll keep postponing it. But
well,
no, I will have to see like when I can do this and just go for it. One of my team members, my senior, actually did the first training of these three last week. So he just said, I'm gonna take this entire week off and you know screw everything and everyone that needs my help for this week, and I'll speak to you next week. And he just vanished for a week, and he really enjoyed it. He came back really positive out of this. He's like, I learned a ton. I really enjoyed it. We should do this more often, and make it more mandatory. So he was really, really positive about the experience.
interesting. This is where I always find that if you have a problem at your job, very rarely are you the only person who has that problem at your job. And so you said, I want to do trainings. I don't see other people really doing these trainings. It sounds like everyone wants to do them. It sounds like people want to grow in their careers and in their technical skills. And this senior person went and did it. Out of curiosity, are they the same person? You'd mentioned something in, I think, session number 2, where you said people wanted to take more time, but they also found it hard to do it.
Same person.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. I think, look, there's sometimes you just jump in and that's how you prove to yourself that you can do something. So, are you working specifically with any Azure stuff or DevOps stuff in the next, let's say, 6 months?
Most likely.
Okay. Yeah. And so, I don't want to, beat you over the head with this, but you're saying I would probably have naturally put off the trainings till the end of the year, but the end of the year is longer than 6 months from now. So, I mean, you can see the problem that's forming here, right? Like the trainings would probably help you do your job. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I definitely want to say that like prioritize doing at least one of these trainings.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, for sure. Probably like was it like AZ 102 or something? It's like Azure Fundamentals. That's definitely one I should follow because something mentioned last session is that we lost 2 contractors
yeah.
as part of our team. And one of those contractors was working on like a web app that we needed that uses, Key Vault, Azure, all that kind of things in the backend. I think it uses Microsoft Blazor, I think. So all these technologies I'm not familiar with, and that's like really tied into Azure. But his handover of that software was to me. So it's not entirely finished yet. I have to finish it at some point this year. So yeah, I'll just have to do it before I can get going on that.
Oh boy. Okay. Yeah. You definitely need to carve out the time then for this training. Do you know anything about Azure to begin with?
Like no,
Okay.
basically not.
That's fine.
I've used Azure DevOps for the like Git repository thingy from Azure, but that's about it.
Okay. I don't think that's necessary. I think there are segments of computing that I think are their own little worlds that you have to learn about. So databases, networking, graphics, and cloud is a newer one of those things. And there are quite a lot of terms and concepts, and they're also interrelated that the sooner you start learning, the better. I remember the first time I opened Fruity Loop Studio, the music program I use, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on with any of this. I could like drop down notes and that was it. But what happened is every time I open it up, I learned just a tiny bit more. And so there are lots of ways to mess up when you're doing things in the cloud, and they can have very big repercussions in terms of cost and security. So yeah, I definitely think the fundamentals will be good. What are the other 2 trainings that you mentioned?
I think there. So you got fundamentals. I think you got 4 developers or something, and I think there is DevOps. Is there? Yeah. Let's see. I think AZ 400 is like designing and implementing Microsoft DevOps.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, it's like all these codes, and I think Azure Developer Associate or something like that.
Okay. I think those are good things to learn. And I think that once you have that foundation, learning anything new based on it shouldn't be as bad. How do you feel about learning this stuff? Are you excited? Are you like, this is a chore? Or is it just scheduling the training that's a chore?
It's a mixed bag of emotions, I think. Like I genuinely enjoy learning new things. For example, Spanish. I really like the technologies and stuff like that. But there's also a bit of anxiousness there because having more uh, a bigger tech stack, naturally also means you're going to get more work over a diverser range of tech stack, so there's more things to upkeep, which is going to spread me thinner and thinner and thinner. And we already got so much work, and just going to be more work probably coming not just my way, but our entire team's way once we are, now also the Azure guys on top of being the guys we already are, so to speak.
Yeah, you mentioned, I think, unless I'm misunderstanding, that you hired someone new on the team.
No, yeah. So we had 2 contractors. These have been let go because of cost savings, but my manager has now been fighting to get a new full hire, and they are now actually in the progress of getting this +1 FTE employee.
Okay. Oh man, I have an opinion
But
about
this
this.
this 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 position, I should say, is not a development position. This is just general software maintenance. So this would take like the general software maintenance from my workload and some workload of my colleagues in lesser extent,
Yeah.
so that I get more, especially me and one of my other colleagues, get more time to focus on development.
Okay. I think that's a good decision. I think looking back, they two people were let go for cost reasons, and then one full time person was hired for work reasons. And this is the
Yeah.
tension that constantly happens, right? Try to save costs, realize you made a mistake, try to fix the mistake, then you have a different problem, and you keep kind of going up and down along this cycle. Maybe this is not even worth asking, but do you know what level of management made this decision? Like, are they regretting it? Do they seem like, I don't know, what brought this about?
No, it's the top level management that decided this. Yeah. Like
Okay.
we just needed to cut costs at some point, and the first thing that goes when you need to cut costs is contractors. So they were like the first layer to just go, and then my manager really fought for like, but we are already drowning in the work we have, so this is just gonna bite us in the ass. And eventually he, managed to get the funding for a full-time employee then.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, as long as it's not necessarily, I guess, the same person, imagine saying, hey, I'm firing two people, and then next month saying, well, that was a mistake. I'm going to go fix it by doing this. And it's like, well, maybe we should have had more planning or involving other people. Okay.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
don't think it was such. It was like, the general company-wide policy was like cut down on contractors.
Yeah.
Uh, and then my manager was like, yeah, we just can't stay afloat like this. We need to fix this ASAP.
Okay. Yeah.
With
Well,
quite some pushing from me as well to like my manager, like, you know, just me alone got like, work with three people going on right now. I'm sure my colleagues have the same thing.
yeah.
Like, we need to fix this. I brought it up probably every week. Like, we can't go on like this. And he really takes that to heart and makes work out of it. So that's great.
I, I, I like the direction it's going in, but you've now mentioned the workload multiple times over multiple sessions. With this new general maintenance person joining, it'll shift your focus, but it might not actually lessen your workload to the point where you don't feel like you're drowning. What happens if, 3 months from now, you're still like, there's too much work, the whole team has too much work? Does your manager then fight for funding for another full time employee?
I think that will be hard. He will probably just say like, okay, then we just drop this project instead.
Yeah. Okay.
Like my manager does thankfully care for our health as well. So like if we really can't keep up anymore, then he will make like just the manager decision of, okay, we're gonna drop this, so you guys don't burn out.
Okay, good. Yeah, because I think I mentioned this last time, but you either cut down on the work or you get more people, but you don't expect the people who are there to do more work and just, scale infinitely. It doesn't work that way. So, all right,
No.
that's fine. And I think this is a reasonable conclusion, but it still requires that you feel good about it afterward. I mean, if you still like projects were dropped and you're still like there's still too much work, then there could be a problem. But we'll talk about that if that ends up happening. Yeah. So how do you feel about this stuff? Should we move on? Do you have anything else you want to talk about there?
No, I think we can move on. I
Okay.
think that's about the gist of it.
Okay.
So you mentioned this in your pre-mentoring session questions to
Yeah.
set up for yourself. Virtual route setters, speedrunning nodes. How I've been working on that. The speedrunning nodes I've just dropped completely in favor of the virtual route setter one. And I started on with your code gem session, which was really, just a nice way for me to get started on something new. Started thinking about it, started working on it quite a bit. One thing I implemented during the development for this is that I just started using GitHub more. Actually work with branches, create issues,
Oh.
create
Ki-
a backlog, just so I have more focus and I have a clearer overview of like, how far in the project am I, what kind of things do I need to do
Okay,
to
wait, wait,
help.
wait. This is great, but what does this mean? Used to freestyle it. What did that actually mean?
Oh, I'd just be like, today I'm gonna do this, and like I'm
I
be
see.
thinking about what I need to do, and I didn't even write it down, so I forget about it. And then the next day I'd be working on that, and I was like, oh, but this would also be really cool, and I'd go for this. So I was like, no process behind it. I didn't write anything down. I'd forget half the stuff. I'd forget like an hour later. So that's what I mean by like
Okay.
freestyling it.
I thought it was about GitHub itself, and I thought, are you just saving things on, external hard drives, and then you need to revert, so you go looking through 6 different folders or something? Okay, anyway, yeah, carry on. Sorry to interrupt.
No, no, I was using GitHub at the very least.
Okay, yeah,
But like it was all just like the main branch and just,
yeah,
push onto it and yeah. It was a mess still.
yeah. I imagine.
So I've been trying to just structure it, even if it's like just a personal project. I've been trying to structure it more and also apply this to my daily job as a programmer, which I also kind of freestyled maybe perhaps. And and I've also just been like working better with like keeping bugs, keeping a backlog, making work items, making dedicated branches for issues and stuff like that. Which just keeps it all clearer, makes it easier to also show colleagues what I'm working on, or get someone involved if needed. So that's nice. Uh,
I think that's wonderful. I think I sometimes crank things to the extreme when it comes to organization, and then sometimes it ends up
maybe.
hurting a bit. Yeah, maybe a little bit. But I think that it's always good for getting me back to working on something, is having those tasks and knowing, okay, what did I, because you're mentioning this at work. You were originally focusing on, let's say, this much, and now you just said, okay, Azure's pulling into the mix. You have fewer people working on the team. You're going to bounce between projects. When you do that, that organization starts paying off even more, because if you go 3 weeks without looking at a project, you forget the context, you forget the code, you forget everything else. So, have you seen? I don't know how long you've been using your organization methods for your work, but have you seen an impact on the team with this? Like, have they been like, oh, wow, this bug was filed by you and now I can follow what's going on? I know you said you're mostly isolated in terms of work areas, but has there been any impact?
No, no, not really, because we're all
Okay.
isolated.
Yeah.
So we like don't even see each other's bugs or tickets or whatever. So
Okay. But there is impact for you. You said it is easier.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all personal impact, and
Okay,
that's
good.
been
Yeah.
huge.
Okay. That's
Uh,
that's good
but
though.
yeah, so for the climbing application I've been working on, that's just completely stopped right now. Like the last 2 weeks, I've not really been working on it. Like I fell sick again, so I didn't really feel any motivation while I was sick. I was just taking time to recover. As I mentioned to you earlier this week, I bought a house this week, so I've got like a lot on my plate right now, and I just feel like if I get home, I just wanna relax. I spent half of my day coding at my job already. I don't really want to bother with it right now. Uh, so it's come to a halt now, and I think that's fine. Like on the one hand, I'm a bit, I'm still thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I actually want to get working on it, and I feel kind of bad for not working on it. But on the other hand, I've also accepted it, like there's more to life than coding. So I also have peace with just not working on it right now, and I can still pick it up again in a month or half year time, or whenever I want to do it again.
Yeah, I find that this happens in a lot of different ways. Sometimes good things, like buying a house is a good thing, and sometimes bad things, getting sick or, some sort of major change. And how you react to it, I think what's important. You could say, yeah, I'm still going to work on this thing and I'm just going to, work myself to the bone. I don't think that's good. And you could also say, I'm never getting back to it now. I've lost momentum on it. And that would also be fine if you're okay with it. I think that for something like this, will you, like, how much of the momentum was caused by coming from the code jam and feeling like I had this project, I proved to myself I can do this. And so I guess you'll find out a month or two from now, or 6 months, if you come back to working on this, how do you feel about it? And that time away, that space away from it, can really be helpful. So do you think you'll be excited in a couple months and still want to work on it?
Yeah, I think so. Like
Okay.
climbing is still a passion of mine, and it will probably stay for a long while. So the project I'm working on is still a passion. I still think about it regularly, and I still write down ideas. I think a lot of momentum did come from the code jam, but I also feel because of what I mentioned before that I now got like a list of issues and features I want to work on. I feel like it's also easier to let go and not have to think about it because when
Yeah.
I do come back, I know those tasks will still be there, and I can just jump back in where I left off. Read up on some notes I've taken, uh, and go from there.
I think it's good. You also mentioned that you're writing down ideas still. That's bound to happen. I think that's really nice. There were some other things that we'd talked about, like you potentially reaching out to the climbing gyms near you. Those are things where if you said, you know what, I don't want to get into coding necessarily again, I don't have the time for that, but I've got, a Saturday afternoon. You go over to your climbing gym and right before your session, you say, hey, how would you feel about virtual route setter? Is that something that could help you? And that could be another way of kind of feeling like you're making progress without needing to do code necessarily. So yeah, you could always
Yeah,
do
I have
something
been
like
doing
that.
that actually as well. I went to my climbing gym the other day, just like last week. Took my laptop with me. Well, some route setters were there. I was like, hey, look what I've been working on, and they were really quite excited about it. So even though
Yeah.
I didn't work on it, I did show it to some people.
Okay. Yeah. Did they say, I mean, what was their feedback, I guess? Yeah.
Uh, so they were like a bit like we don't really see yet how we would use it at our gym, but they could see like other opportunities for it for maybe like competitive walls, where you got like 1 day to set your competitive boulder. And they were like, if they would like have this wall in digital a week in advance, them it would probably like give them a lot of added value. And we also just brainstorming a bit, what other things could you be using it for? So like for example, one thing we discuss is, oh, maybe we could like put a laptop on the counter with this up, and climbers can submit their own ideas for a route, and then like every
Oh.
week or every month, like the best one gets picked and get actually made, which would drive more client interaction for the gym, uh, which would be a benefit to them.
Okay, this is why I said this whole thing about an idea in isolation can only be 80% of a good idea.
Yeah,
And I don't mean this as an insult or anything. I just mean like that's an idea I just never would have thought of, right? Put a laptop there and have people submit their own routes and they just kind of tinker around and then they're turned into reality. Now you can climb this route that you made. Um, and think of what you'd need to do as a result in your application. You'd probably need some sort of automatic, I don't know, like scoring system to figure out how difficult is this, because maybe someone makes a route and they're like, this looks cool, and then in person it's practically impossible, and only the top two climbers in the world can do it. Do you feel kind of like that this represents a shift in direction or priorities, or like maybe now you want to talk to more customers as a result of this? What did you take from
no, I
this?
don't think it really shifts much. I think it's very much in line with what I would already be doing. Like,
Okay,
of
yeah,
course, it would need some extra, way to submit it and whatnot. But I think like it still has like 90% in touch with what it would initially do already, with some extra on top. But I do think it would be, having more features like that and just a broader uh, use case for the application would help if I actually, get to a point where I want to involve other gyms with it.
yeah.
It's good for pitch talk, so to say.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I kind of meant this in two different ways, by the way. One was, did it change your mind on any features? And the second was, does hearing about their needs make you think, hey, maybe if I talk to three other gyms, they would have different needs? And
Gotcha.
yeah. Um, and I don't know, maybe that's already one of your plans or when you get back to this or something.
Yeah, probably when I get back to it. Like, I don't know. Probably, if I would speak to other gyms, they probably would have some new insights. I don't know. I haven't talked to them,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
a bit hard to answer. Uh, but probably, yeah.
Okay, yeah. It's nice to at least have done that. I think it's hard to judge things without being there. And so for myself, I've seen other people say, "Hey, you should go to conventions, you should go to meetups and everything." And I was always like, "Look, I don't see the point, but fine, I'll go to some of them." And then I can finally judge, okay, here were the pros, here were the cons. So it's good that you at least went to your gym and you did this. And it probably felt good to do that too and get some feedback and get other
Oh
eyes
yeah,
on. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
awesome.
You
Well,
know, it's just a bit of a flex. Like, oh, that's really cool. Like that you can do this, and really impressed. And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. That's
yeah,
nice.
yeah. That's really good. Um, All right, I want to ask you something really fast before we move on to the other thing you had, which was about the celebration. Where did I write this?
It's a little cupcake, just
Oh yeah, here it
five
is.
lines down.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna bump this up here. Yeah. All right, you have the picture here, although I have it in negative colors. Let me. I can't do this really quickly now.
It looked
Um,
better in real life, probably, if it's in negative colors. Then
what?
it looked better in real life than negative colors.
Oh yes, definitely. It looks like the frosting is maybe charcoal frosting. um, I wanted to ask, did this feel like? Yeah, I guess you wrote it down here. Didn't really feel like much. Might come if I do it more often. Uh, I think in my mind, the point of this is let's not just kind of scramble from one project to the next over and over. And I think we have a tendency to do this in the modern day. And you just mentioned, okay, I want to stop doom scrolling, so I'm going to pick up Spanish. And it's not necessarily like I'll just have dead time. I don't think we have dead time in our day anymore. So looking back, SR notes sounds like, oh, it's just a thing of the past. It happened. I'm done. I've moved on. You said it's not really a priority right now. Have you heard back from people about it? Are people using it? Do you?
No, not that I know of. No one mentioned it. I don't think anyone of them using it, and that's fine. It's out there, so maybe sometime someone will pick it up, or maybe I get back to it myself in a couple of months, couple of years, whenever it's out there, and that's fine.
Okay. Um, and did like I guess there are lots of things that I think about when it comes to the celebration and kind of closing the loop on this. So you launched it. That was really good. But what it represented for you is overcoming that last 10% of a project, which really turned out to be
Yeah.
something like 30% of a project. And you proved to yourself that you could do it. And now you have this milestone in your head of, I launched it, I had a cupcake. Is it any less daunting in the future? Do you feel more confident as a developer as a result of this? Are there, like what are we came full loop here. What are the positive outcomes of having made this app?
Yeah, I think a positive outcome is that what I said before I launched it, I was like a bit afraid to launch it because you're like, what if people don't use it? What if people hate it? Negative comments, whatever. Now I launch it and I find nobody actually used it, and I'm fine with that actually. So now I know, like, next time if I have a new idea and I'm like afraid, like, oh, what will I think about it if no one ends up liking it? Well, I now know I don't really care if no one likes it. I liked working on it, and that's fine enough for me.
That's great. I think that's exactly kind of what I was talking about. And maybe the celebration route is something I need to adjust for this to figure out like maybe it's a retrospective that's important and the celebration should be coupled with a retrospective. So I'll think about this for myself here. I'll write this down. Maybe the
Yeah,
retrospective.
like I said, the cupcake thing. We talked about it. I did it. I posted it in Discord. It was like more of like, here's a bit of a laugh. I did it. But for me, it didn't really add much,
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah. Okay. I'll try to adjust this a bit because I think that's what part of this should be. Um, I mentioned that my wife had good news the other day and we went out to breakfast to celebrate and I was like, I want to talk about the good news. I want to ask you like what led there, how did you feel? And I said we're going to conduct this like it's an interview and at some point I was like, okay, so what was the next step? And I know it cuz I'm married to her. But she got so into the interview that she was answering like, well, I never really thought. And I'm like she separated from the reality to put herself in this position of how do I explain this to someone new. So I wonder if I could do something like that maybe with you or with other mentees. And anyway, I still think it's great that you got this thing done. It's great that you overcame your fears. It's also you took time to dedicate yourself to this project. It wasn't just, okay, I'm going to sit down and do this. It was, I need to bring myself to sit down and do this.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll be slightly easier next time. Maybe it'll still be tough. Okay, well, I'm glad you tried. I thank you for humoring me. Let me go back up to here. So body doubling. Why don't you tell me about this?
Yeah. So after our last mentoring session, I did a couple of them. Which were pretty nice. I did it while working from home. I saw that the same couple of people came back, so they probably enjoyed it as well, I would imagine. Some of the sessions, I noticed we were talking quite a lot, which wasn't really what I was looking for. But at some point, we just mentioned like, okay, let's actually focus now. And then, everybody just focused, so that's nice. Uh, and then I just worked from home a lot less the last couple of weeks, so I didn't really do it anymore. I
Yeah.
wasn't working on any of my personal projects in the evening, so there's no need for me to do it then. So like the last 2 weeks, I didn't do any of this.
Okay, I think that's fine. These things can come and go, and the way I look at this is it's a tool. So when you feel
Yeah.
you need that tool, then use it. Do you think you were more productive during those sessions than you would have been without them?
Oh yeah. At some point, I was very conscious about going to YouTube.
Okay, yeah.
I was I was in the call with some people, and I was like, "Oh, hey, look, whoever just uploaded something to YouTube," and I was, and like someone just happened to cough in the call, and I was like, "I shouldn't be doing this."
Can you imagine? What if you could accomplish the same thing with just a random cough program. They just you're about to do something
And
and
whenever you go to YouTube.com, like you're like,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
So it,
great.
it definitely helped.
Yeah. And did you find that it let you do tasks that were like you're there are times you're productive outside of body doubling, and then there are times you're productive with body doubling. Were there tasks that you could only have done with body doubling? Did it motivate you to do things you otherwise wouldn't have done at all?
Honestly, I can't remember. I
Okay.
don't even know what I had for breakfast, so I can't remember what I did 2 weeks ago during those sessions.
All right, that's fine. Just add it to GitHub issues next time, and we'll talk about your breakfast. Look, I think it's good. You've now shown that you can be productive in these sessions, and you have this tool. And like you said, you might not have been otherwise. You might have been on YouTube or something. So I myself have been trying to do some of this too, except for the way I was doing it was everyone is silent the entire time, and we were just typing in chat, and that was somewhat rare. And so I don't know what the best setup is that's effective for everybody, but you found something that works for you, and you have these as a tool. So yeah, I think you continue to use them. This
Yeah. I
this can you apply this at work at all?
well, we kind of are doing this next week, though it's not entirely the same. Like there's this one project we're working on, which is basically we're tying three completely different software packages together, and there's basically one dev for each software package, and we're all working on our own implementation. But at the end of the day, it's for the same tool. And we will be, for the entire next week, we will all three of us will be sitting together, even though we are working on our own on our part of the project. So I guess it's kind of like we are as a working team, but on our own individual things. But
Yeah,
we will be sitting together, so I guess it counts as body doubling.
yeah, I think so. I'm definitely curious to hear how that goes once it's happened. I think I was watching a movie last night, which has nothing to do with software engineering, but it was set in the 1950s, and everyone in this town in the movie seemed to know each other. And I always kind of find it to be sort of a fun game of figuring out what is accurate to that period of time and what is just done for the movie. So, like, someone having super detective skills is like, okay, they did that for the movie. But people knowing each other in a town is not done for the movie, right? People did just have stronger social connections back in the 50s than I think we do now. And it made me think we are pretty isolated compared to that, just about 75 years ago.
Yeah.
And and so being in the same room as your coworkers working on vaguely adjacent tasks is not something that's new to society. And yet it's noteworthy to bring it up in this session that it's going to happen and that I want to ask about it. So like what does this show us about working with people and around people and our social needs as just humans and as workers?
Yeah, especially in our field, it's very
Yeah.
normal to like not sit together or like not even know what the person across from you is working on. I
Yeah.
feel like especially software engineering is really maybe a bit special in this regard, where like there's a lot of even in a team you're still working on your own slice of the pie.
Yep, exactly. And there's this thought I read online a while ago, which is you pass somebody on the street and they are a person just like you with a very complex life and their own set of problems and wants and desires, and you'll never know any of them because you just pass them on the street. You may never see them again. And I remember when I was about to leave one of my jobs, right when I was going to start Botland, I remember talking to people and they said, "Oh, where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to start a company. I'm going to do this." Like three people in that room had their own jobs or their own companies outside of the work that they were doing. And I just never would have known if that one conversation hadn't come up. So I'm curious about how this goes from the point of view of productivity, but also just in terms of team bonding. And then, yeah, if it goes well, will you set something like this up again? Something along those lines where it's like, how can we learn from this and then use this just like body doubling in the future? Okay, so yeah, we still have a little bit of time. I want to ask you about this last bit here. The how did the mentee?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after the first session, I was approached by someone, that they wanted some advice. They wanted to just talk about their situation, and my experience. So we did. We had a first session. After our second session, we had a bit of a chat on Discord again, like, hey, how's it been going last month? Have you seen any
Hmm.
improvements, stuff like that. And it just kind of stayed with that chat. They didn't ask for like a new call to be set up or something, and I didn't really ask for it either. I don't know. I didn't really feel comfortable pushing it or like asking like, "Hey, do you want to call again?" Uh, yeah, I felt like it was a bit outside of my own comfort zone to ask them to do it if they, didn't initiate it themselves.
I see. What is your concern there? So outside of your comfort zone, I understand. Are you concerned that you'd be pushing them to do something they don't want to do, that they might be uncomfortable? What are
Yeah,
you?
I think that's a portion of it for sure. Uh, and also just think to myself, okay, what more can I add after the last session? I think those two are probably the biggest concerns I had.
Okay, interesting. Um, this is kind of similar to when you were about to launch SR Notes and you said, I'm worried about how people will take it. I think that in general, people take things probably better than you'd naturally assume. And I don't know if I mean you specifically when I say than you would naturally assume, but I think that is the case for sure. And I don't know if that's a general case as well. But it sounds like you have some fears about how people will take things. And in this case, I bet if you reached out to them and you said, hey, do you want to do a follow-up session via voice? That's a very low pressure way. It's like a, do you want this thing? Not a, hey, I think it's a good idea for you to do this. And they're individuals. They can say no, and they could just say, you know what, I'd like to just keep this to chat. I think you run into maybe strange, almost like clashing of etiquette where someone might feel like they don't want to say no because what if you'd be hurt by saying that and you don't want to make them feel ignored, so you ask them a question, but neither of you really wants to move forward to this. Okay, that could be an extenuating circumstance here, but otherwise, if you wanted to move forward, I think you could ask them a very low stakes question of just, do you want to voice chat about this or something? It's also totally fine to do what you're doing. I just want to throw this out there that I think the important part here is the what if I don't have more to give them, or what if they can't benefit from this? And I doubt that's the case, at least.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I'm interested to hear if that keeps going. I think even just doing things over text can still be good. You can still help somebody. They can still ask you questions. I think it's a little bit harder to communicate efficiently over text just because, I mean, think of how many words you say versus how many you type. And it's just, yeah, there's a lot of nuance.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to scroll through my questions that I had and just see if anything's super important. I know you mentioned this. How's it
Sounds good.
been? Yeah, you mentioned this. Um, oh yeah. So let's just ask this for now. Are you doing an A-star challenge yourself?
I want to, but I don't think I have the time for it. Just having bought the house, there's just so much in my personal life going on right now that I
Yeah.
don't think I have the capacity to do like anything like this right now.
Okay.
But I think that's a shame. Like if I can, I will. But I probably won't.
Okay. I don't think you should add pressure to yourself. I think from what you've said, I think you should make it a goal not to do it. Like if you have the time, it should probably go somewhere else or towards Spanish or something. Only because really think about it. Like if you have this much stuff going on and you're already leaning toward not doing it, what are the odds that you find the time? It'd be more that you'd have to carve it out. And if you feel the pressure to carve it out, then you might, and it would come at a cost. So
Yeah,
at least that's
I
my
think
input.
that's accurate. I think.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I suggest not doing it based on how you said how things are going. So last thing I want to ask
Yeah,
is this. Oh,
yeah. Like one thing I want to add to this, like, and I also feel like because I'm the one that initiated it, I feel like there's a bit of pressure there for me to involve myself in it more. And I know you would say like that's silly, don't do that, don't think like that. But like having been the one that put it out there, I kind of feel like I should probably do something with this myself and not be just like throw it out there and forget about it.
I don't think you have to do that. I think there should be some follow up, as in like, let's say three people submit something or one person submits something. I think you can like round them up and just say, hey, good job or something along
Yeah,
those lines.
that will be done for
Yeah,
sure.
that's probably it. But beyond that, I think, yeah, and we'll see how this goes as a community too. The last thing I want to ask about here is this. You'd mentioned in December and January, there were some low points for you. I think you'd also gotten sick then and you just got sick in the last month
Yeah.
too. How are you just generally feeling about your life, about how things are going?
Yeah, things have definitely been better again.
Hmm.
I've put exercise again, which is a big thing in my life, exercising. So just being able to do that made things better again. I have the outlook of about a new house, which of course brings its own troubles and stresses. But it's definitely been going better. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm good. I'm glad to hear it. Again, if anything ever, if it feels like, oh, hey, May, things are dipping again, feel free to bring it up in these sessions if you feel I can help. And yeah, that's everything I've got. Yeah, thank you for joining. I look forward to just kind of seeing how the rest of this stuff goes. Everything I put a star next to is like, I want to ask about that next time. I want to figure out how that goes. So yeah, Thanks for joining, Remy.
Not gonna lie, those stars are really useful for me as well because like preparing for the session myself, I went like, oh, what are his stars again? What do I really need to mention? So those are also useful for the mentee that you put them in there for
Oh,
sure.
good. Yeah, cool. All right. Well, yeah. Take care, Remy. Thanks for joining, and yeah, I'll see you next time.
All right, thanks for the session.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.